Welcome everyone. Welcome to our webinar on GED tips and tricks. We'll be starting in a couple of minutes. We're just waiting for everybody to log in and then we can begin. We're very excited to have everyone. Just a reminder before we begin that we are streaming live on YouTube, and you are more than welcome to type in questions for our panelists in the comments facility. We will be monitoring those questions and we will try our hardest to get to all of the questions and to answer them. So feel free to type in the comments facility. Okay, so GED tips and tricks. Welcome to our webinar and thanks for joining us. Homeschooling in general has seen exponential growth over the last few years. And due to COVID, many new parents have been contacting us as they investigate homeschooling. My name is Sean Swartz. I am the CEO of SK Education Solutions, the official office of the GED in Africa. A special welcome to all our new GED students and parents. A brief introduction to what the GED is, if you don't already know. The GED testing program makes it possible to earn the equivalent of a secondary school leaving certificate to allow you to get employment or even to access further studies such as degrees at university. The GED was created in 1942 in the USA as a second chance opportunity, and today more than 20 million people have graduated with their GED. The GED test represents a new paradigm, one in which critical thinking, problem solving, and close reading skills are required across all content areas. In addition, because of evidence-based writing, students are also expected to demonstrate both their reading and writing skills. It's no longer simply acceptable just to write an opinion piece. Students have to analyze, evaluate, and develop a claim supported by the evidence based on what they've read. It's all about critical thinking, and critical thinking is what is needed in the workplace. They're not interested in you learning things off by heart. So as we look at the GED test, it's really important to remember that the purpose of the test is, number one, provide a high school credential. Number two, provide evidence that you are ready to enter the workplace or to study further. And number three, to provide information about your strengths and areas of developmental need. The GED can help you strengthen the areas of developmental need, ensuring that you are ready for the next level of your lifelong education and training journey. The GED test is future focused. What does that mean? It means it's designed to provide information about your readiness that is directly tied to the next steps in your preparation and training. Today, we are extremely privileged to have Angela Verovsky with us. Angela is an expert in the GED as well as a highly experienced GED tutor. She's been tutoring GED students for many years, specializing in online tutoring, and has helped hundreds of students pass their GED over the years. We are currently live on Facebook. And we have made the comments facility available to you to post your questions. Please feel free to type questions in the comments facility. We will be monitoring these questions, and we will try our best to ensure that we answer all your questions. Students today face an overwhelming choice when it comes to choosing the career path that they want to follow. I'm sure you're thinking, well, absolutely, I have no idea what I want to study. And so, recognizing this, we are excited to be able to help students through another course that has nothing to do with the GED, called the Dreamcatcher Advanced Online Course. The Dreamcatcher Advanced course is the absolute perfect tool to help students to define their career pathways and to plan out their education. And we have a great surprise for you today. We will be giving away one of these Dreamcatcher Advanced online courses, which is actually valued at about R1,000 to someone who asks a GED relevant question. So feel free to type in your questions in the comments facility. We will be monitoring these questions and we will try our best to answer them. Before we get to Angela, I would like to quickly just play a short video so you can see something relating to the Dreamcatcher course so that you know what it is all about.
Deep within our students is a sense of purpose, a dream for a better life. It may be just a hint of a feeling, but it's there. It's the feeling and thought that there has to be more to life than the daily grind. Too often, adult ed students find themselves in survival mode, where the only thing they can focus on is their basic needs. But this does not mean that our students don't have a dream. Nor does it mean that with the right tools and attitude, they cannot fulfill their purpose and dreams in life. This is why they come to adult education, to make their dreams happen. Dreamcatcher is an amazing new program to help adult students discover their dreams and the path to make them come true. It's based on a 5-step approach to a personal career plan. We call it the MAP, spelled M-A-P-P-E. That's mental mindset, asking yourself the right questions, purpose, plan of action, and execution. In the first step, mental mindset, the student examines their own self-image and how their mindset can help or hinder moving forward toward a career. Then, they can ask questions that illuminate their interests, skills, personality, and strength. Based on these findings, students then explore careers, gathering data about available jobs, salaries, training, and work conditions. Once the student has determined a career goal, a purpose, their next step is to make a plan of action. The plan defines the specific steps and a timeline to get from their starting place to their ultimate destination. The last step is execution, the skills and motivation to move forward with their plan. Dreamcatcher is a perfect tool for the intake process when it's critical for adult ed students to define their career pathways and plan out their education. And just as important, Dreamcatcher can be easily integrated into academic and career pathway programs so that the student can seamlessly connect their education progress to their goals and purpose. Add Dreamcatcher to your program and help your students find their dream and the tools and motivation to make it happen.
So, as you can see, it's a really amazing course. And if you would like to win this course, just type in a question for us, a GED-related question that we can help and answer. So, Angela, thank you so much for agreeing to give our listeners some study and exam tips and tricks. I'd like to start off, if you don't mind, by asking you just to explain what the learning skills are that students need to develop in order to write and pass the GED exams. Because as I understand it, it's very, very different. There's a lot of critical thinking involved, and it's not about parrot learning any longer.
Hi, Sean. Yes, thank you. Hi, everybody. You're 100% correct. In the GED, you learn skills, like you already said, not parrot learning. So the skills that the students have to learn is analysis, okay, which is the breakdown of information, and they look how the information bits are related to each other. They look at facts, they look at opinions, they need to identify bias, they need to identify propaganda, they need to identify fallacies, they need to make inferences based on all of that information, they need to infer, they need to come to a conclusion about something. They also need to learn application, which is where they use information given to you and you apply it in a different situation. There's comprehension, a lot of comprehension, which is understanding what you're reading and how to figure out meaning of words without a dictionary. Because in the exam, you don't get a dictionary. So you have to use context clues. You have to use what's in the context to try and figure out what words mean. And this, at the end of the day, results in closer reading and understanding what you're reading. There's synthesis, where you take apart the information, you put it back again together to form a theory. There's also evaluation. It helps you make decisions about information presented to you, and how you decide to use that information. Then there's also cognitive skills, which is reasoning, perception, and intuition. These are the main skills, and you use all these skills you use in every single subject of the GED. So it's not even in math, because in math you get questions, and you have to read these questions very carefully to try and understand what are they asking you. What is the actual question? What information do I need to use to answer this question? So yes, these are all the skills that you learn within the GED.
So let's talk practically now. Let's just discuss the maths exam as a start. Can you just talk us through it? I mean, do I have to be a maths genius to pass this exam?
Oh no, the math has a mixture. There's some math literature. Obviously, the math literature is more, again, on your skills of reading and understanding what you're reading, and then answering a question. So you will get a problem in a given to you in a written form, and you have to then try and solve that problem. There's also some pure math, which is equations, systems of equations. The pure math, you don't need that to pass the GED. You can pass the GED comfortably just with the math literature. So you don't need to be able to do a quadratic equation in order to pass the math.
Okay, so I can do the basics as long as I read the question correctly and understand it and focus and understand exactly what they're asking me, then I should be fine. I don't have to worry about factorizing equations and all these scary things. Okay, all right. That sounds good. Before we get into more detail on all the other exams, let's just say I'm a brand new GED student. I'm about to start studying on the 1st of April. Do I have to study all 4 subjects at the same time? What do you recommend? What should I do?
Sean, I ask my students not to do all 4 subjects at the same time because it's not necessary. You're allowed to do one subject and write the exam. You do the next subject, you write the exam. So I think it's far easier just to focus on one subject. Do that subject, you know it's done, it's over. And also the skills that you learn in one subject, you use in your next subject, which means that you actually move through the next subject easier and quicker because you've already developed some of those skills in the previous subject.
Right. So as I'm developing my skills, I'm going to be using them for all of the exams. So which one do you tell your students to start with?
I ask my students to start with social studies. I know that a lot
Why?
of students...
Can you tell us why? I mean, if I love English, why would I start with social studies first?
Studies has the same, you develop the same skills that you use in English. And I find because the social studies subject is a little bit shorter than English, English comprises really of 3 subjects. You have your reading, you have language, and you have writing. So it is longer, it takes longer to work through the English. And I find if students start with the social studies, they write the exam, they pass it. They know they've got one subject passed, and they also use those skills in the reading. When they move over to the reading, they use those same skills that they learned in social studies. And for the student, it's a little bit of a boost to know, I passed one subject already. I've only got 3 to go. So
yes.
Always ask the students to rather start off with social studies. If they struggle a little bit with the social studies, if I see that they've not developed the skills required to pass the final exam, I then ask them to move on to reading, because then they can still work on those skills. It's new learning material. It's not like they have to go over the social studies again. It's new learning material, but they can still work on developing those skills. And when they're finished with reading, I let them go back to social studies again, and we see if they've developed more of those skills that they need to pass the test.
Okay, and you mentioned being ready for the subject. How do I know when I'm ready for a subject? I mean, how do you tell me? I mean, what happens if I'm not studying with you? How do I know that it's time to go and write the final social studies exam or the English exam, or whichever exam it may be?
So the GED do offer ready tests, which you can purchase. The ready test is generally half the length of the actual exam, and it gives the student a very good idea of what to expect in the exam. So the format is exactly the same as what you would have in the actual exam. And if the student passes this ready test with a score of 155 and above, then I generally regard them as being ready for the exam. If they have anything less than 155, I suggest that they do a little bit more revision. We don't want them to sit, because 145 is a pass. 145 is a pass in the GED. But in order for them to be ready for the exam, I do not suggest, if they get a 145, I don't feel that they're ready for the exam yet.
You're basically saying you may scrape through, you may not. And so rather keep studying and keep working hard and get a better mark so that you're quite confident that you will pass the final exam. So just in summary, the GED Ready is it's an official mock exam that's provided to students by the GED itself. These mock exams are, call it a smaller version of the final exam. It's a half length exam. You can purchase these on the GED website. Lindsay will be posting a link to actually find the place to purchase a voucher for the GED Ready test. So we'll be posting that link on the chat function shortly. But essentially, it's a lot cheaper to write this exam, this mock exam, at 130 Rand plus VAT and to fail it, than to write the final exam, which costs $75, which is a lot of money. It's about 1,200 Rand, and then find out that you're not ready and you don't pass it. So we highly recommend that you first do the GED Ready, pass it at least, as Angela says, 155, and then you're more comfortable to pass the final exam. You can then go out there and book and write that final exam. I think that's really important, because not only does it tell you whether you can get it, I think more important than that is that if you don't do well, the GED Ready tells you where you went wrong and what to focus on, so that you can improve your mark and by studying what you need to actually study.
I'd like to also sorry, Sean, I'd like to mention something on that feedback. And this is what the students need to realize, because a lot of times students expect that the feedback that they get is telling them which questions they got wrong. It's not. The feedback that they get is to tell them which skills they need to develop. Because remember, this is not learning like a parrot.
Yes.
You're not going to get the same question the next time. Now, you need to develop a skill, and you need to learn how to use that skill in answering a question. So the feedback that they give you is they tell you which skills you need to work on before you decide to take another test.
Okay. And I've just been scanning some of the questions that have been coming in while you were explaining this to us, and I just want to clarify a few things. So firstly, we, as the GED and Angela specifically, recommends studying one subject at a time. It doesn't mean that you have to study one subject at a time. It's really up to you. You're welcome to study two, you're welcome to study all four at the same time. It's really up to you as a person what you want to do, but that's obviously what Angela's recommending. And the second part of that, I think it's also important to understand how long should it take? How long should it take me from start to finish? The average student that struggles with maths, how long should I take to complete my full GED and to pass all four of my exams? Is it 3 months? Is it 3 years? Is it 1 year? Like, what do you recommend? What do you suggest it is?
We generally suggest a year. So for social studies, the average student should be able to finish it within 3 months. Science, they should be able to finish it within 3 months. And the science might even be shorter, because the science is not such a long program. Yeah. English, on the other hand, is a little bit longer. So because there's 3 different components to the English, it can take sometimes up to 4 months. It just depends on the student's comprehension.
Okay, fair enough. And to finish it in 9 to 12 months, and if you're using the popular online learning platform that I think the majority of students in South Africa are using from Essential Education, there's a question, how many lessons or how many hours actually should I spend studying per day? Is it 30 minutes a day? Is it 2 hours a day? What do you recommend?
So my recommendation is nothing less than 2 hours a day. Okay. 2 hours a day could comprise of between 3 and 4 lessons that the student would be able to cover. But anything less than 2 hours, I don't recommend that. 2 hours minimum. And depending if the student does want to study on a Friday, but minimum 2 hours from a Monday to a Thursday. and they should then comfortably be able to complete it within a year.
So Friday's a public holiday. You're saying we don't have to study on Friday. Okay. Now, I think this is a really big one, and this is where I think all the viewers that are watching this for free should actually be paying us for. Tips. Can you give us tips on answering questions? I read the question, I just choose the answer B. Like, how do I know, how do I analyze the question so that I can get the right answer? Can you give us some really practical tips?
So, firstly, read your question, pack it out. Read the actual question. What is the question asking you? Take note of words like not. And generally, if they do put a word that is a not in, which one is not the correct answer, then they put it in italics, or they will put it in bold. So take special care of those words in the question. And then once you've analyzed your question, then you can go to the passage and you can start reading the passage, because now you know what you're looking for. I think one of the biggest mistakes that students do is they jump in and they start reading the passage immediately. And social studies and reading, it's a lot of reading. So, and you will generally get a few questions on one passage, not only one question. So the student tends to go and read the whole passage, then they go to the question, and then they take time to analyze the question. Then they've got to go back and read the passage again. So it's just they're losing time. And the more time they lose, they start getting nervous. So yes, one of the biggest tips that I do give students is read your question first. Understand your question. What are they asking you? Then you start reading the passage, because you might get the answer in the first paragraph. Then you don't have to read that whole passage through. You can answer it, move on to the next question. Carry on reading from where you stop. So that is quite an important tip. And then also, you have the facility to mark questions for later review. When you're in the exam, if you feel that you're spending too much time on one question, mark it for review. Please do not leave it blank. Pick an answer, okay? Because you've got a 25% chance of picking the correct answer if you do not have an opportunity to get back to that question. But generally, you mark the question for later review, pick an answer, move on through the questions, because students tend to spend too much time in the beginning of the exam on questions. Then and there's easy questions at the end of the exam. And sometimes they don't even get to those easy questions. Or by the time that they get to the easy questions, they're so flustered that they don't take time to analyze their question, and they pick the wrong answers. So rather than spending too long on one question, flag it for review, pick an answer, move on. At the end of the exam, you will have an opportunity to go back to the flagged questions, and you can spend a little bit longer time on answering those questions.
I think that's an excellent tip. I mean, as you say, you may run out of time, so just choose any answer if you're not sure, but flag it so that you can always come back at a later stage. Now, let's talk a little bit about the actual test, because I find that a lot of students are really nervous because they don't know what to expect when they arrive at the testing center, and what to bring with them, and what they're allowed to bring into the testing center and what they're not, and how it works with the extra time to get ready and to whatever it may be. Can you just, are you allowed to bring a calculator? Can I bring my exam pad to make notes? What do students need to know to expect when they arrive at the test center?
Firstly, they need to make sure that they bring the correct identification documents with. It is extremely heartbreaking when a student arrives with the incorrect identification documents and they don't get to write the exam, and they can lose all their money that they paid for the exam. So the student needs to make sure that they take an ID document with that that is valid and that does have their signature in the document. So the green barcoded ID document does not have a signature in. And I also don't think passports have a signature in. I'm not sure about that. But if the document does not have a signature in, they need to get an affidavit confirming their signature. So the document
or they
needs
can
to
use a bank card.
Bank card, but it has
like
to have their
credit
name
card.
on.
So the bank card must have their name on their front and then the signature at the back, and then the problem solved. But I think the majority of students these days don't have the old-fashioned green book ID. The majority have a smart ID, and the smart ID has everything that they need.
Correct. So that's the first step. When they do arrive at the testing center, they will have a facilitator that will assist them. They will check their details on the computer. They'll make sure that everything matches up. They will go into the actual testing room. They're not allowed taking anything with them. Absolutely nothing.
I can't bring my cell phone. I can't bring a piece of paper.
Nothing. No calculators. You can actually, there's a tutorial on the GED.com system that shows you what to expect of the calculator, the online calculator in the exam. So you can actually go and practice that, working on that calculator before the exam. So nothing goes in with you. They do, however, in the room that you will get either a whiteboard and a pokey pen or a pen and paper. So you need to make sure that that is there when you go and sit down. If it is not on your desk, you need to put your hand up, call your facilitator and ask them, please, where is my pen and paper? Because they need to supply you with that. And that is the only thing that you will have in the exam. When you start the exam, sorry?
I don't get a calculator.
No, you can't take a calculator in. You get a calculator on the system. So when you start your examination, they actually do a tutorial for you. They show you how to navigate around the system. If you want to move forward, if you want to move back, if you want to see 2 pages at the same time. In the math exam, they actually also give you a tutorial on the calculator, how to use the calculator before the exam starts.
Okay, so I'm not allowed to bring my own calculator in. They don't give me a physical calculator. However, on the exam, for the questions that I'm allowed to use a calculator, there's a button that I can press on the exam that brings up an online digital calculator, which I can do whatever I need to do with. So it's not like we're not giving you a calculator, it's just that it's an online calculator that's on the screen. And I want to repeat something. No matter what anybody tells you, I don't care what piece of paper you've got, I don't care what emails people have sent to you, I don't care what you've seen, I'm telling you, you are not allowed to bring a physical calculator into that exam, even if it is the exact same one that they show on the screen. You are not allowed to bring a calculator in, so don't bother trying to buy one. You're not allowed to use it. You will get an online digital calculator. I also want to repeat what you said, Angela, regarding the paper. So essentially, you get scrap paper or you get a small little whiteboard with a pen. That is your scratch paper where you can make notes, work things out, whatever it may be. That's your paper that they give you to work out the answers, and then you do the answer on the screen. You put the answer A, B, C, or D. But you're not allowed to bring your own paper in. They will provide you with paper or with a whiteboard and a Koki. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. What happens if I need the bathroom?
There should be a facilitator that should always be in your sight. She wouldn't particularly sit in the room with you, but you should be able to see her while you're writing your exam. If you need to go to the bathroom, if you pick up any problem with your system, with your test, the calculator is not working, or or it's frozen, the screen is frozen, anything like that, you need to put up your hand and you need to wait for the facilitator to come to you. You cannot just get up and leave the room. Okay, it's important. And if you pick up any problem with your system, the time is not running properly, or you've picked up any irregularity, put your hand up, call the facilitator. She needs to make a note of it, because if anything happens afterwards and you want to investigate the matter, she will have to lodge a case against Pearson VUE, and she will have to give you a case number. Without a case number, you cannot investigate what happened there. So she will write to Pearson VUE, this is what the problem was with the student exam. They will then issue a case number for further investigation.
And that includes load shedding. Unfortunately,
Correct.
It's standard here. If there's load shedding at the time, they will load a case against Pearson. They would provide you with a case number, and then Pearson will then provide you with a voucher, which you can then book another exam. Is that right? Correct. Okay. One last question on the testing centers, then we can move on. Are you allowed to, I'm thirsty all the time. Can I bring a bottle of water into the exam with me? No, you're not sure?
I don't think so. No, I don't think you can.
You're not allowed to bring anything into the exam. You can bring your head to think about the answers, and that's it. Nothing else. Fine. Okay. Now, the one that I've been keeping to the very end, and it's the one that I think everyone is always worried about, and that is the essay, the English essay. Let's talk about it, because it's not an essay that I can make up something once upon a time, somebody did something. It's a complicated essay.
Correct. So the essay is all about evidence. You get, and these things you learn as you go through. You learn to pick out evidence. You learn to pick out propaganda. You learn to pick out biases. As you move through in social studies and in reading, you understand what these are. And when you get to your writing, you will be given two prompts or two passages. The one passage supports a subject and the other one opposes it. You have to then go and you have to pick out all these things that you've learned about, the facts. You need to understand what is credible facts, okay? Opinions, bias, propaganda, people that use that as evidence, the argument is not credible. You need to look at what kind of evidence are they using. Are they using studies, recent studies that were done 200 years ago is not credible evidence. So you have to go in both of these passages. And what I normally tell my students to do is you have a whiteboard. When you start your essay, you have 10 minutes to plan your essay. Because the essay, you have 45 minutes to write it. Take 10 minutes. You cannot write an essay without planning your essay. And remember, they want you to paraphrase. They don't want you to summarize. So you need to write the essay in your own words. You can't just go and pick out pieces out of the passages and put that in your essay. You need to tell the reader that you understood what you read. So you take a piece of paper. On the one side, you write down supporting evidence. On the other side, you write down opposing evidence. And you just quickly jot down all these things that you've picked out. You jot down the biases. You jot down the opinions, evidence, all of that. And once you've jotted down all the supporting and opposing evidence, you need to look at the evidence and based on the evidence, not on your personal opinions. This is the biggest mistake that students make in the GED and not only in the essay, is that they try to bring out their own personal opinions. You cannot. This is purely based on the evidence in the passages. You need to decide which passage has got the best supporting evidence, and you need to write about that. You need to you state a claim in your first paragraph. You give them a main idea of what these two passages are discussing or what the argument is about, and you state a claim. And your claim is which passage has got the best supporting evidence. And then you have to carry on writing. And remember, your main idea now is your claim. That is which passage has got the best supporting evidence. And you've got to feed that through your essay. You've always got to have your claim there. You've got to support your claim, okay, by saying, passage 1, this is bias. This is propaganda. So this passage is full of holes. This evidence is not credible. So you got to back up your claim right through your essay. And then finally you close off with that. I don't like to say, tell them what you've learned about that, because then the student tends to start using words like I. And the moment that they start using I, they start using personal opinions. So I believe and I think. So they must always try and rather say, so the conclusion that I can come to based on all this evidence is that gambling is not as bad as what people believe it is. Gambling can be good for an economy. It can bring money into an economy. If gambling houses offer, sorry, I'm just picking out something. If gambling houses do offer people help that are addicted, help for addiction. So yes, that's basically what the essay is. It's all about evidence and none of your personal opinions.
Okay, so that was really excellent advice. I think it's very, very important to fully understand how the actual essay works and what it's all about and how to write it. And also the time allocated to the essay is separate in the exam to all the other times. So you get that time and you get the full amount of time that you need, and then you move on to the rest of the exam. So be careful not to rush through the essay. As you said, spend a lot of time. Now, what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be posting on the comments facility now. I'm going to be posting the link, and this link is from the official GED website to tips on how to write your essay. A lot more tips. I mean, Angela's given tips, but I think the more the better. And these tips that I've posted here are for free. They're on the official website, and the tips are coming from the GED themselves. These are not just tips made up by anybody. These are tips coming directly from the GED, telling you how to prepare and how to write the essay so that you can do well in the essay. It's not easy, but if you work through all these tips, you will do well in it. So please spend the time going through these tips. It's definitely, definitely worth your while. Now, over and above this, just so that you're all aware, on Facebook, there is a group called GED Chat. Now, GED Chat is an open public group that we monitor and manage. And I'm putting the link to it on the live chat now. And that is a group where anybody can apply to belong to and to ask questions like the questions that you're asking today. We're monitoring that group and we will advise and answer questions. So feel free, it's a free group to join. Join that group, it's definitely worth your while. If you haven't asked a question yet, now's the time to type in your question. Not only will we answer your question, but you may also be in line to win that Dreamcatcher career course valued at R1,000. Angela, I think it's been really, really helpful. And I'd like to thank you for all the tips and the tricks that you've given us today. I think what I'd like to do is just hand over to Lindsay. Lindsay, I think, just has some admin things that she wants to talk about. and then we can jump straight into all these questions.
Thanks, Sean, and thanks, Angela. I think the one thing I just wanted to ask Angela as well, which is something that we get asked a lot, is when a student does their GED test, how do they see their score and how they did in the test?
So Lindsay, they should receive, within 24 hours, they should receive the score on their GED.com profile. So if they log into their GED, sometimes it comes through quicker. I know that the RLA exam takes a little bit longer because of the essay, because the essay actually gets marked by somebody, whereas the other tests is automatically marked by the system. So the RLA, I think, can take up to 3 days to come for the score to come to their profile, but the other tests should be, the score should be in their profile, the GED.com profile, within 24 hours.
Okay, and then Blake asked us, will the main GED test say correct or incorrect, like the practice test does for each question?
No.
Okay. And then I just want to reiterate, because a few people have asked that in terms of the GED, looking at South Africa now, is when students finish their GED, they can apply to SAQA for a certificate of evaluation. SAQA has been evaluating the GED and giving an evaluation that's the closest comparable qualification to the National Senior Certificate. So they're essentially giving it a grade 12 equivalent. For students who want to study further, we recommend looking at considering doing a higher certificate at NQF level 5 as a stepping stone before applying then for further studies if you want to study further. We've also been asked, Angela, and I know you're also very clued up on the SAQA applications, is how long is it taking for SAQA to send the SAQA certificates after completing the GED once they apply to SAQA? I know we don't have a lot of control over that process.
It's supposed to take 14 days, but I do know that SAQA has been inundated. They've been exceptionally busy, so it has been taking longer, but as far as I know, it should take 14 days for it to be finalized.
Okay, perfect. And you have obviously previously discussed how many classes a student should look at doing each day and how long they should look at studying. So that really answers a lot of it. Someone has asked, how long would it take for a student to get their transcript or diploma when they finish their GED?
So once they've written their last exam and passed their last exam, I have to stress they have to pass all 4 exams in order to qualify for the credential. Once they pass their last exam, the credential will be emailed. It should be emailed the moment that the scores go to the profile. So probably within 24 hours, or it could be maybe 3 days, depending on how long they take to score the essay. And it will then be emailed. There will be 2 emails sent to the email address that is registered in the student profile. And it will come from Parchment. Sometimes these emails go into the student's spam or junk mail. So if they cannot find it in their inbox, they must check their junk mail. Each email will contain a link where they can then download their diploma and their transcript.
And that link is only valid for a certain amount of time.
Correct. So we suggest, and I think it's 2 months if I'm not mistaken. So we suggest that the student does download the credential immediately and save it in a safe place where they will have access to it afterwards.
Fantastic. And then linked to that is students, they are eligible for 1 free hard copy diploma, but they will need to pay the FedEx courier fees if they want to receive it. So they would need to go onto their GED.com profile, order that hard copy diploma and pay the courier fees if they want the hard copy. Okay. Someone's asked, I know you've answered it, but maybe we can just reiterate, is do they get a scrap piece of, can they take a scrap piece of paper in for maths, or do they get?
No, they don't take anything in. They will be provided with scrap paper in the testing center.
Okay, and then we've been asked if they're studying Essential Ed, the online learning content, can they reset their work when they want to do revision?
Yes, they can. So they will just have to contact the school from who they purchased the online learning, and the school can then reset that subject for them.
Perfect. And we've covered it as we've been asked what happens if there's load shedding in the test. Obviously, the testing center will log a case with Pearson. Pearson will investigate, and typically, if there was load shedding in your test, you'll be given a free reset voucher. I think for any of these technical questions, it's important to flag that if a student raises anything, whether they send an alert to help@gd.com, or any issues or problems, if they haven't heard back from America after 4 days, they can send it to us on support@ged.org.za, and we will escalate on their behalf to just try to speed up the process of their queries getting resolved.
Can I also just add regarding university studies? I think it's really important to understand that in South Africa, USAF do not provide a letter so that you can apply to study at university once you've got your GED. So you cannot go directly from getting your GED to applying to study at university to do a bachelor's degree. That doesn't mean you can't study a degree overseas. And there are unbelievable online universities that fully accept a GED on its own. One of them is called the University of the People. It's an incredibly powerful and excellent university. They have agreements with multiple other top-class universities throughout the world. They are actually very, very reasonably priced. And I would highly recommend you just going and searching for the University of the People to see what they actually have on offer as an alternative. They've got excellent stuff. And in fact, and look out for it, we are going to be running a webinar and having somebody representing the University of the People on our next webinar so that they can talk to us and explain to us all about the University of the People. However, let's talk about South Africa for a moment. Lindsay, do you want to just explain to us, if you do want to study at university, if people, and I've seen quite a few comments in the chat saying, I was told just do NQF level 5 and then I can do it. Like, what is the story? After I get my GED and I do want to do a degree, is there a way of doing that?
Yes, so if you finish your GED and you're adamant that you want to study at a South African university, because obviously we all know that 98% of American universities accept the GED. If you want to study at a South African university, you would then need to apply to SAQA for a certificate of evaluation that equates the GED as being comparable to the National Senior Certificate. That's step one. Step two would be you would apply to colleges. You've got colleges such as Boston City Campus or Pearson Institute that offer a wide range of higher certificates, be it in marketing, in commerce, any of those. And what you can do is you can apply for a higher certificate at NQF level 5 with your SAQA certificate and your GED, and then study it. And once you've studied it, then you can look at applying for a degree program. Now, what's quite nice about Boston or Pearson is they do offer the opportunity for students to get transfer of credits into their degree program from their higher certificate. But it's always important before you're starting to study the GED is to contact the university or the college and the faculty where you want to study and find out their admission requirements, whether they accept the GED or whether they want you to do the GED and the SAT or the GED and the NBTs. Check with the institution where you want to study before you start your GED journey so that you know upfront what the requirements are.
Okay, thank you very, very much. Before we continue with questions, it's really important to also give away our free copy of our Dreamcatcher course, valued at R1,000. And so, Lindsay, would you please tell us who our winner is?
Yeah, sure. So I think Iman A has been desperate to win it. There's been so many comments and posts. So Iman, if you can send us an email on info@ged.org.za, we will get that voucher off to you so that you can register for the Dreamcatcher Advanced course.
Iman A, well done. Just email us on info@ged.org.za. We'll send you the course. Anyone else that wants to look at the course, just let us know. We'll send you information about it. We are recording this webinar. It will be available to everybody after we finish the live streaming. We will be sending out an email shortly in the next day or so to everybody with the link so that they can always re-watch this webinar and go back to all this valuable information. So please feel free to re-watch it and come back to anything that you need to. Lindsay, we have about a few more minutes, and so can we try and get through the questions that you feel you'd like to answer before we end off?
Definitely. I think there's one that's very important. It's can a student with dyslexia who can produce a written report from a professional use a reader for the exams? Now, the GED offers accommodations to students. These accommodations are either for extra time, for readers, for scribes. There is a process to apply, and you need to submit medical records that are no older than 3 years old. But most definitely, we've got a lot of students with special needs or with learning difficulties who are writing the exams with accommodations. You're welcome to pop us an email if you need help with that process or the link, but most definitely there's accommodations available. And I think that's the main ones that we haven't covered as yet.
Angela, would you mind just, before we end off, just giving a last tip or advice or comment for our existing and our potential GED students?
Yes, definitely. Don't overthink it. I think students, you know, the GED, again, I have to say, you don't have to learn it like a parrot. It is skills that you learn. I think students get very concerned about social studies because this is American history and economics. It could be German history and economics. You have to learn the skills to answer these questions. There are a few, like the American government, the different branches of the government, that you would have to familiarize yourself with to understand some of the questions. But essentially, the answer is generally in the passage. You just have to learn the skills to find the answer in the passage.
I think that's excellent advice. And if I could just add one thing to that, and that is what I learned today, and that is in the essay, do not use the word I in the essay. It's a no-no. You're just going to get marked down for that. So stay away from personal opinions, stay away from the word I, and you're already doing much better in the essay. If you have any queries or comments, feel free, search for us on Facebook. GED South Africa is our link on Facebook, or GED Chat, which is our group for asking questions. Follow us. All the latest information is always posted on the Facebook page. So follow us, you'll get all the information that you need. If you need us, you can always message us or email us on info@ged.org.za, and we are here to answer and to help you in any way. Lindsay, last bit of advice from you.
I think really, as you said, is don't overthink things. Make sure you study, do your GED ready practice tests so that when you go into the exam, you're ready. And really go through our website and contact us. We're here to help. Our job is here to help GED students, and we're more than happy to answer any questions. Pop us an email, ask us questions on the group, and we will get them answered.
And I think just to summarize as well, if there is any queries that you have, or if you don't know which school to go to, we are always worried about fly-by-nights and those type of things. And so if you're not sure of which school to register with or which to use to prepare yourself for the GED, please contact us. We'll understand what your requirements are, what type of school you're looking for, and then we can recommend a school that is authorized and reviewed by us that we can recommend. We've run out of time, so I'd like to thank Angela and Lindsay for joining us, and to our audience, to our GED students and our parents. Thank you so much for joining us today. We hope that you found this very helpful. If you need anything, always contact us. We're here for you, and look out for the next webinar coming in the next few weeks. Have a great afternoon.
Thank you.
Okay.